Good afternoon. Hope everyone's doing good out there. My name's Alicia Myrick. I'm with the Unified Prevention Coalition. It's nice to be here with you all today. So I'll get this started by giving you all a little bit of what to expect here, and then also I'm going to fill you guys in on what the Unified Prevention Coalition is and all of that kind of contextual stuff, right? So, like I said, my name's Alicia Myrick. I'm with the Unified Prevention Coalition, and our kind of parent agency is the Center for Health Innovation, and we are New Mexico's Public Health Institute. So although I am coordinating with the Unified Prevention Coalition, I also oversee the Prevention and Community Collaborations Department as a whole with CHI. So we have programs in Grant County, Luna County, and Doñana County. And what we do is we are really kind of the boots on the ground to work on prevention issues and, just kind of get out there and work with the community. So we do that in a lot of different ways. This is one of them. If you know me, you know that I pretty much live by the saying, you don't know what you don't know, right? So that's a good place to start with prevention. How can you prevent what you don't know anything about? And we'll talk about that towards the end of the presentation today, what some of the next steps are that you can use the knowledge that you're going to get today. So you all were promised, if you're here, that we were going to talk about some laws pertaining to alcohol, right? So we're going to let you all know about legal consequences for driving under the influence of alcohol, for allowing yourself to be served if you're a minor, that minor in possession charge. We'll talk about a couple of consequences that those over the age of 21 can come across if they provide alcohol to minors. But before we talk about all of that, we're going to need to get into some of just the alcohol 101, right? So we're going to talk about what alcohol is. You can see up here on your screen that we've got a lot of questions here that we're gonna go through and ask. So we're gonna kind of do the alcohol 101. We'll get into the culture, and then once we've painted a really good picture of what alcohol is for you and I, right? That's the way that we're going to talk about it in this presentation. It's not going to be, down to the chemical level of what alcohol is really, but we're definitely going to talk about, a little bit of that stuff. And then I just invite you to really think about what alcohol is to you in your life, in your community, and how you've seen it. And kind of broaden the horizons of the way that you think about it, right? So that's kind of the overall goal here in the first two sections. And then we're going to get into alcohol law. Along the way, there's going to be some stuff here that you can apply to you as an adult, things just culture, overarching culture, and then there's also going to be a lot of talk about youth, because after all, we are a youth serving coalition. We do everything that all of the strategies that we use to prevent substance use among the youth is through their environment, though. So that's where parents, guardians, grandparents, school officials, right? That's why we're all here, because we really have a lot to do with if a youth uses substances or not. So then after we talk about those legal consequences, we'll get into how you can help prevent that use, okay? So hopefully that paints a good picture and piques your interest. If not, hang in there, I promise. I'll try to be entertaining. I can make it entertaining. All right, so let's talk about what is alcohol. So that first question that was up on the screen, is it a drug? We don't really tend to think of it much as a drug in our community, right? It's, and probably in most of our nation as well. Alcohol is kind of the outlier, the other. There's tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs, right? So it tends to have this different kind of facade painted around it because of the availability of it and how intrinsic it is in our culture. So it is actually a substance, right? We're going to look at the definition of a drug. A drug is a substance other than food intended to affect the structure or function of your body. I promise you, if you argue it with, down to the word and the meanings of it, alcohol is not a food. Sorry, guys. There's no caloric value to it as far as nutrition, not a food. It's definitely a substance, and it's the effect. It actually does affect how our body functions, right? So, and I'll let you guys kind of look at the other definitions here as far as alcohol and what it is. The main thing to note here is that alcohol is it's ethanol, right? So that's the ethanol is what's actually creating those effects in our body. So we're going to go ahead and move on here, and we're going to get into, now that we know what alcohol is and we're kind of painting it in the light of that substance that affects the function of the body, the structure of the body, we're going to go into what would a healthy amount of drinking look like if there were such a thing, right? So this is these guidelines are put forth to for you to be able to kind of guide what an amount of drinking would be that didn't harm the body or didn't carry such a high risk for harming the body. So if you're a man, you can drink 2 drinks per day. We'll get into what an actual drink is. So don't get excited. 2 drinks a day is definitely not 2 wine glasses filled to the brim. And then for women, we can drink 1 drink per day. And that's how we're going to stay away from some of those health consequences that we'll talk about here soon. So this is I'm not going to go through every one of them, but I want you guys to kind of take a look at some of the differences here. When we're talking about what an actual drink is, we're talking about the size, the amount of the beverage that you're consuming as far as, the milliliters, right? And then you're also looking at the strength of the alcohol within it. So as you can see, there are certain drinks up here, 375 milliliters of this mid-strength, 3.5% alcohol per volume beverage. That is 1 drink. So technically men can drink 2 of these, women can drink 1 of these and kind of shy away from those health risks. But if we look at this 24 pack right here, you'll realize it's actually 34 servings of alcohol, right? So we kind of have to be careful here. Not everything is 1 drink just because we're counting it that way, right? We have to actually pay attention to what's in it. Wines are the same thing, right? So if anyone ever seen someone kill a bottle of wine in a night, right? Watch a sad movie, drink some wine. We've seen that in the movies, whatever. That's 8 servings. That's 8 servings. And we'll get into what heavy drinking is. This is heavy drinking for a woman, which is, it gets dangerous when you're thinking about your health. If you notice, none of these glasses are filled all the way up. You'll see the memes on Facebook about, I fill mine up to the brim, or you'll even see some of those fancy kind of things on Etsy where it's the whole wine bottle turns into a glass at the top, right? Those kinds of things, although funny and silly, they really do put you at a health risk. So just for the purposes of you all kind of knowing where we're coming from, definitely not saying adults over the legal age shouldn't be drinking. Right here, this is what we in public health call harm reduction. And we're going to talk to you guys about that because you're adults, right? If you're drinking, in order to be a responsible drinker and reduce some of that harm, you really need to know how much you can drink safely. So that's what this is all about, right? This one here is going to get into some of those fancier drinks that are on the market right now, right? The spirits. We do have, just a regular spirit over here, 30 milliliters of high strength, 40% alcohol by volume. Maybe this is whiskey or whatever. That's 1 drink, right? So if you think of some of the cocktails you can mix up, think of the sangria. It's got a few different things in it potentially, depending on your your chosen recipe. Margaritas, same thing. It can have several different shots of, this is what we would call a shot, right? A 1 ounce. People get double shots of this and that, right? So this kind of, the spirits can really add up pretty quickly. And as you can see, there are some, these 660 milliliter beverages. I mean, that's well over what a man or woman should drink in 1 day to stay under that, the threshold where there could be harm associated with it, right? So for the sake of knocking these two at the bottom out, any alcohol used when pregnant is no bueno. Please, please, please do not drink alcohol when you're pregnant. And we'll get into very soon why using alcohol under the age of 21 is such a big issue. It's not just a legality. It really does have a lot to do with how the brain functions and how it grows, and there's a lot to be concerned with here, and I'll let you all know about that here shortly. So the two terminologies between these two here, the left and the right, this is going to be binge drinking over here. So 5 or more drinks consumed on one occasion for a man, and 4 or more drinks consumed on one occasion for a woman. Now, the part that I'm going to kind of go back to is, remember, this could easily be one cocktail, could be a standard 3 alcoholic beverages, right? So which already puts you over that one limit, and then it does nudge you up towards the binge drinking. So just kind of helping us think there, right? So we're just kind of exploring it today. So I'm just kind of trying to point back to a couple of those things we talked about. And then here, when we're talking heavy drinking, we're talking like on the week, right? Just the scale of the entire week. So if you gentlemen out there are drinking more than 15 drinks on average during 1 week, that is considered heavy drinking, and 8 for women, right? So those are the kind of typical drinking patterns. Now we want to get into what drinking, how the time that it takes to metabolize through your body. I won't kind of track it from, the point that you swallow it until the point that your body metabolizes it, but we are going to think about the time, right? So we're going to go with 1 shot of vodka here. That's what we're going to think about, right? That standard drink, just one of them. So after you drink it, it reaches the brain in 5 minutes. It says there is also enough alcohol in the blood to be measured at this point. So it's pretty quickly absorbed into your body, right? Just 5 minutes after you take that shot, it can be measured, and it's already reaching the brain. So 20 minutes after, that's when it gets to your liver. And the liver metabolizes more than 90% of that alcohol. So we're going to talk more about the liver later, but this is why, this 90% is why alcohol is so hard on our liver. Then 45 minutes after you take that shot, assuming that you've only took the 1 shot, right, your blood alcohol concentration is going to peak at that point. So it starts after 5 minutes, continues to rise until 45 minutes, and then it's peaked. And after an hour, it's been metabolized through the body, okay? If you add on more drinks, your body is not going to reach that peak until 45 minutes after you took your last drink, and it will take at least 3 hours until your body has rid itself from drink if you have like 3 drinks. If you have 2, it'll be 2 hours, 3 hours, and so on. So I hate to break it to you guys, but that cup of coffee is not going to help. You can't run it off. You could possibly sleep it off if you sleep long enough, but there's nothing we can do to make this metabolize quicker. All right, so now that we know what alcohol is, we have a better understanding of kind of the parameters around drinking, what's considered healthy, the different levels of dangerous drinking. And I invite you guys, we do have one of our staff members, Michelle Rincon, on our chat. So if you guys have any questions you want to throw up there, she's a prevention specialist and she's waiting to answer. I'm also going to keep an eye on it too. So if you want to throw us some comments out, want to kind of interact with us, we'd like to try that. I don't know if you saw that technically this is our second one. But to me, I'm sitting in 4 walls talking to myself. So if you guys want to chat with me, feel free. I'll try to comment back out loud to you all. And again, I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. This is kind of one of the parts of it that I really, really like to get into, because I've seen a lot of presentations and even done a lot of presentations where we just kind of walk through the different areas that you can expect for there to be an increase in cancer and this and that, almost a dry level of, where in the body can be affected by alcohol. But alcohol really affects your mind, body, and spirit. So when I'm talking mind, I'm talking brain. And when I'm talking spirit, I'm talking emotions, right? So we're going to get there too. We're going to start with the body, and you'll definitely get a little bit of a yikes out of that because we'll get into some of the specifics of it, but then we'll go into that mental, the mind part of it, your actual brain, and then we'll get into your emotion and what alcohol can do to just your emotions as a whole. So we'll start out here with the heart. When you're dealing with alcohol, and again, I'm just gonna paint this with a brush. These are the kinds of things that we get that we're at high risk for if we're drinking heavily, if we're binge drinking, if we're drinking more than those standard amount of drinks, right? So those guidelines are there to protect you from these health outcomes. Not that any drinking is ever considered healthy. It is a preventative to stay under that threshold. So if you're drinking heavily, or, and participating in any of those risk behaviors with alcohol, you can expect that after a while, stretching and drooping of your heart muscles will occur. And that's when you get that kind of high blood pressure issue going on, irregular heartbeat kind of stuff. And it does not stop there. So let's talk about that liver, our poor liver. The liver is really resilient. It regenerates at a very high rate. So if you've ever, I want to say I saw it on like Grey's Anatomy, as cheesy as that sounds, but you can actually donate a portion of your liver to someone that is in need, and your liver will regenerate. And it's not like a kidney, whereas you would just be one kidney down, your liver will repair itself. But kind of tap into if you know anything about diabetes, and we're going to talk about the pancreas up here too. These cells, although regenerative and very resilient cells, after a while from the cells die when you're drinking, right? It's almost acts like a poison to your body. When you're drinking, it kills off those cells, and they do regenerate. But if you're drinking too much over the years, it actually slows that ability to regenerate the cells, and then that's where we get permanent liver damage. And we have a ridiculously high amount of people in New Mexico dying from liver diseases related to alcohol. So when we get up here to the pancreas, kind of same thought there, right? These cells get tired of it, and your pancreas can become inflamed. Very, very scary dealing with the pancreas. So that's kind of a problem. I don't know how many times a day you guys think about your pancreas, but I don't. So a blue guy is supposed to be cancer. So I know you all have heard this before. If you drink, you increase your risk of developing cancer. So cancers of the mouth, esophagus, throat, liver, and breast cancer are some of the top ones. But it definitely, like I said, it affects the cellular growth. So that anything that we're putting in our body that affects the cellular growth is going to come with that increased risk for cancer. And then you're also having kind of some of those effects to your stomach that can be long-term and short-term. I know when we think drinking, we definitely think like, drinking too much, getting sick, being nauseated, and having those kind of stomach issues. But also long-term, it can inflame your stomach and the lining, which can lead to ulcers and bleeding. So that's something to think about as well. All right, last page of some of these the things to know about your body. So alcohol is a diuretic, and it flushes calcium away from your healthy bones. So although right now maybe some of us don't want to be thinking about osteoporosis, right? It's an issue. If you're drinking, it actually could lead to weakness within your bones where you could fracture easier, get osteoporosis. I don't know about you, but I cannot even, sometimes I sit on the couch too long for the wrong way and I can't move. I can't imagine having a bone fracture at 31 years old. So when we think about that kind of what alcohol acts as in the body and how it relates to the bones and just kind of the workings of your body, right? We've got to think about your immune system, which I definitely encourage you all to think about today. We're all out here taking vitamin C and using all the hand sanitizer and whatnot. I really encourage you to just pause for an extra thought when you think about drinking, because it really, really harms your immune system. It reduces the ability of those white blood cells to work effectively, and they're making you more susceptible to illness. So it does create inflammation, I'm sorry, within the body, and that's always going to make you more susceptible for illness. So definitely when we think COVID, I've seen it in the papers, I've seen it on social media, I've seen it all over, even in marketing, some local marketing that like, hey, we're all at home, put some rum in your coffee, let's do this thing, right? Um, Although I do see the humor in it, I can respect that for sure. They make me giggle, but really just think about your bodies and think about your health, right? Also, heavy alcohol consumption can contribute to weight gain. I saw something. I want to say it was in like Men's Magazine or something. I saw a clip of it on the internet the other day that was like, you trying to lose those extra 2 pounds? Well, you're gonna have to stop drinking beer. So that's definitely a thing, right? It slows our metabolism. So really though, if you're trying to lose that extra weight, it's a good idea. This little guy over here is a nerve cell. This is another one kind of like that stomach one. If we really kind of think about it, it's obvious, right? That it's affecting our neurological system, our nervous system. We get that slurred speech, the blurred vision, decreased reaction time, all of that stuff. So it's definitely affecting our system as a whole, and it can cause permanent cellular damage. That's that heavy alcohol drinking. It's scary. So I want to stop here and allow you guys to look at this data point really quick. I pulled this off of the internet. We have a data source that kind of populates all of these numbers for us. So New Mexico's alcohol-related death rate is 52 people per 100,000 people. So to kind of help you all fit that into context, there's about 200-ish thousand people in Doñana County. 1,000 of them live outside of Las Cruces city limits, and 1,000 live within Las Cruces city limits. 52 of either those within or without that 100,000 people have died because of alcohol-related deaths in the past. What does it say? Sorry, it was almost twice the U.S. rate for the U.S. It is every year for all of 2011 through 2015. I'm sorry. This is the national rate, 27.4, right? So there's definitely something going on here. It's within our culture. There's some explanations for it, but there's a lot more drinking here, therefore a lot more repercussions for that. All right, let's get into the mind. So I'm going to go through these areas of the brain, and I'm going to talk to you all about just some of how alcohol affects these areas. And a lot of this is going to be common sense for you. Think back on your stories. Think back about whatever kind of story you have related to alcohol, whether it was a high school reunion, or maybe, it was when you were 21 years old, or, just the other night when your sister got out of hand, whatever. Think about what you see, or even what you felt when you're dealing with alcohol. So the frontal cortex, I like to think about this one, obviously it's judgment, and I've heard, I don't even know where it came from, but all my life I've heard, he thinks he's 10 foot tall and bulletproof when he's, drunk. That's that judgment thing. You kind of get that false sense of security in whatever. You're willing to, bet your car away at the craps table. I don't know anything about gambling. I just threw that out there. Anyway, yeah, so judgment. Your motor cortex. So this is your movement. We've all seen someone who's inebriated. Definitely that movement, it's difficult, right? You're either kind of staggering, which also hits in with the cerebellum and coordination, or you just simply can't move your limbs with the preciseness that you want to be moving them. And then we're going to think about sensations as well. And this one's interesting because I actually have to think back to when I have consumed alcohol to think about the sensations, and you have to kind of remember that when that alcohol hits your stomach, there's a warm feeling there, and then it kind of gives you the fuzzy feelings inside, right? That's happening in your brain. Your brain is this sensory cortex region is responsible for those kind of warm and fuzzy feelings, those happy feelings around it, right? Not to mention the dopamine rush that you get when you're drinking. It's a reward system in your brain, right? And then your visual cortex obviously is responsible for your vision, oddly, in the back of your brain. I've always thought that was strange. Anyway, that visual cortex and the vision is obviously affected with the blurry vision, the tunnel vision, kind of the kind of funny vision where you can't necessarily see how many fingers are being held up, right? That's definitely a thing. And then when we get into the hippocampus and the brainstem, that's where we get into some of those areas that can be more affected with heavier drinking. Not that the hippocampus isn't affected with any level of drinking, but it's more highly affected the more we drink. Same with this brainstem. So the hippocampus, think about that as, when you saw your uncle drink too much and he could not remember that he would not stop trying to dance with everyone at the wedding, right? He just couldn't remember that. No way he would do that. That's that memory. And then the vital functions, this is where we really get into a dangerous place when we're binge drinking, where we can actually shut off our breathing and our heart rate, right? We'll really slow down, possibly stop. That's where you get into danger with a possible overdose. So you really want to think about that when you're considering the amount that you're drinking. All right, so this is some more mind. We're just looking at these things kind of in context with those areas of the brain that we just discussed. So we're talking slowed electrical activity in the brain. That's how the electrical activity is actually what sends in the signals from one brain to one nerve cell to another. And that activity is actually slowed with alcohol. It hurts your long-term functioning. It disrupts communication between those cells as well. It alters your blood flow, impairs your memory. I do like to think about this problem solving. Definitely think about that when we're thinking kids drinking. And we'll talk a little bit about how alcohol, just because it's out of your system, doesn't necessarily mean that you're not still feeling the consequences of consuming that alcohol. Our kids really, really, really need to know how to problem solve, and their brains are really, 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 really not quite set up to do that as it is, right? So we want to give them the best shot that they have. And also, I like to really pinpoint this start of lifelong habits, and we'll get into that as well. But a lot of the reasons why people drink are to maybe help cope with stress, even have fun, right? Those kinds of things start habits that we can't necessarily we can't say that it's going to be beneficial over a long time. If you can't have fun without alcohol, that's an issue, right? And if you can't have a stressful day without figuring out how to cope with some sort of healthy tool, that's an issue that's going to lead to the binge drinking and the heavy drinking, problematic drinking. All right. So now we're going to get into the mind, and this is where I'm going to explain to everyone why kiddos should not be drinking. Okay, so the brain, and I showed you all that prefrontal cortex, right? Mine and yours, anyone over the age of 25, ours is full, completely full. And if we didn't harm it in our early years too much, then critical thinking is not an issue for us, right? We're able to say things like, oh my gosh, I really, don't want to get up and clean the house right now, but I absolutely have to, or blah, 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 right? It's like that critical thinking. You don't stop at the, I don't want to, I'm not going to do it kind of thought, which I don't know about you guys, but that's where at least my oldest daughter is. It's not too much the, thinking about consequences of her actions. It's all driven by what feels good, right? And that's perfectly normal for kids. That's why they need us with them until they're 18 years old. And even then, I'm sure some of you parents out there can say, oh my gosh, they are still so needy, right? We need to be with them to help them with this kind of stuff and help guide them, because they're relying on that limbic system, which is tied solely to rewards and emotion, right? I've definitely gotten in that sticky spot. Don't judge me. My kids are terrible eaters sometimes. When they eat their dang green beans, it is immediately, can I have a candy? right? That's their reward. And it's all based on emotions. They're upset because they don't want to eat it, but the reward is the candy, so they're going to do it. They're definitely not sitting there going, okay, of course I need to eat these veggies. There's fiber in it, there's vitamins. Like, they're just like, oh my God, no, I just need to get that sucker, right? And then, of course, I'm sure you guys have just been staring at this because it's terrifying. This 15-year-old is a heavy drinker, and look at that lack of brain function. All right, now we're going to get into the spirit. At the risk of sounding kind of hippy-dippy with this, hang in there with me, okay? Because I promise it matters. So we're thinking about ourselves, our family members, and we're definitely thinking about our kids. But think about everything that everyone's going through right now. I can't even imagine that there's one of us out there who has not had a day where they had some pretty significant anxiety because the COVID cases are going up, or, you know, their 4-year-old needed help with school, but they were on a meeting, or everything's shutting down again, whatever. We've got our issues, right? So when you think about the long lasting effects of alcohol may be out of your system pretty quickly, but the way that it affects your brain and the way that kind of feeds into the way that your brain functions and thinks, and the emotions and the hormones, the way that your body feels with that dopamine and the serotonin. And I won't bother you guys with all of that stuff. Just know that it does have lasting effects on your emotions. So memory problems and concentration, all the way down to anxiety and depression. And think about some of these things with your kids. Finding it hard to listen, to learn new things. Those poor babies right now are already in an area, they're in uncharted waters, right? So we want to make sure that we're giving them the tools to succeed. And then personality changes, that's terrifying. Teenagers already scare me. If they could just stay with the 1 or 2 crazy personalities, I think that would be best. All right, now this is where we were talking about those coping skills, right? Really the best thing to do, if you can figure out how to do this, even as an adult, it's not the easiest thing. Stress management. Stress is always going to be there. You're not going to get rid of it, definitely. But how do you deal with it when it happens? Do you take a break halfway through the day and go on a walk? Are you, putting in your headphones and sitting there and taking some deep breaths? Those are those kind of time management skills, or time management. Sorry, stress management. If you're drinking and using drinking to cope, there's a problem there because you're not utilizing any of those healthy mechanisms. And over time, you can't even think about what they might be, right? It also causes poor sleep, which causes health problems, right? I know I used to think that drinking helped me sleep, and it turns out you don't get into that nice deep sleep when there's alcohol in your system. It's very disruptive. So definitely something to think about, even in our own consumption outside of our kiddos. And this is all I'm going to invite you, please, to go ahead and think back to the times that you've seen alcohol in movies, or, in your personal life, or maybe even experienced these types of experiences, right? Sorry, that was redundant. My apologies. So when you're drinking, it can be really hard to manage these feelings. And that's when you're going to see things get violent, or possibly get really scary for yourself just as a whole, right? So when we think about the suicide rate in New Mexico, I believe it's the highest in the country, if not one of the highest. And then we think about our levels of drinking, that definitely begs the question, how much of that drinking is correlated with this. And the self-harm, these are all issues. And we definitely do have high rates of youth self-harm and suicide as well, along with pretty high rates of substance use. So something to think about there. It's not easy to deal with some of the things that our kiddos have to deal with, period, let alone if we're introducing these substances into their body, or they're introducing them rather, that wreak havoc on their whole system. All right, so now we're going to get a little bit into COVID. I'm not going to talk about this too much. I just want you all to be aware that they are doing studies on alcohol consumption during COVID. And these are some of the things that they found. So in our region, it was measured during this survey, how was drinking behavior changed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, it's still going on. This survey was done from February to April. So it really measured what were you drinking in February versus in April, what have you drank in the last 30 days. So without getting into any of the specifics, really, I invite you all to go ahead and check this out, look it up and read a little bit about it. There's a whole presentation that you can Google where I pulled this from. It's very good research. So the largest increase in all measures, so it was just drinking specifically, like how many drinks you've had, heavy drinking, that kind of stuff. All of the measures that were observed, there was the heaviest increase in our region. Not surprising, there's also the most alcohol consumption in our region. Also, all consumption, including excessive consumption behaviors, has increased overall and across several groups. So really everywhere in the nation, right? In all different areas, it's really increased. This is the one that I really like to think about in the context of what we're talking about today. Being female, Black, or having children in the household was associated with a significant increase in at least one measure. And if you think about all of the health consequences, mind, body, and spirit, that's putting on parents right now, which is then going to spill over into the home, of course, because we don't live in a bubble. It's not a vacuum, right? Or maybe we do live in a bubble now. That was a bad choice of words. Whatever. There's people in our bubble with us. And they're definitely being affected by this, whether it's, they're seeing it as a coping mechanism and they're deciding, whether consciously or unconsciously, that is an appropriate coping mechanism, or maybe even the violence and that type of stuff, the depression, the anxiety, that stuff is all playing a factor into the homes that these children are living in. So definitely very worrisome. And then the largest increase in alcohol consumption were among people who increased their usual quantity consumed and those who were not drinking in excess of recommended guidelines in February. So the people who started drinking the more people that started drinking more is actually in this area of those who were actually not drinking outside of those guidelines. But then here comes the pandemic, and then they start drinking in those unhealthy ways. All right. I'm going to kind of move through this stuff. I just want you guys to see some of the data here and what we're dealing with as far as alcohol goes among our youth. This is from the Youth Risk and Resiliency Survey. It's a biannual survey that is administered in high schools across New Mexico. And as you can see, in almost everything here, it's either staying pretty steady. And I mean, mind you, I graduated high school in 2008, and I feel like this was accurate. I'm like impressed that it's come down this much. Lots of hard work going on out there in the prevention world and with our partners. But as you can see, although there was a dip, it is kind of creeping back up, right? So it's something to think about. The current drinking is starting to creep back up, and so is that binge drinking, which is worrisome. And now there's a bit of a tick upwards too, either that or it's staying about the same. But the thing that we're going to think about here is the road in a car with a drinking driver. I'll go back over here and let you guys see. Drinking and driving is at about 7% among these high school students and middle school students. Look how many are riding in the car with someone drinking and driving, almost 20%. That's quite a bit. And now where's the one I wanted to, I wanted to point to this one, first drink before the age of 11. And the reason why that is important is because the sooner you start using substances, the more likely you are to have long-lasting damage to the development of your brain that leads to future substance misuse, which is a terribly hard life to live. I know that it's kind of easy, at least in my mind before doing this work, that was always kind of this, like, people say it, I'm sure it's true. I'm sure that is scary for that increased risk, but, not my family, not my friends, we'll be okay. When, you're in this field and you study it and you see in prevention and in public health, period, you see the suffering that comes alongside developing some sort of chemical dependency. It is a difficult life to live, and I know none of us want that for our friends or families, let alone our kiddos. So take a second to look at this. And I'm going to note the national data shows that 33% of the United States citizens do not drink alcohol, right? 33% don't drink alcohol. And look, this is 50% here in our community that say that they do drink alcohol. So another 50% don't, right? Very interesting. All right, that's all the data I'm going to bore you guys with. Now things are about to get fun. This is my favorite part. We're going to talk about alcohol in our culture. Now that we know all about what it does with our body, we've seen some of the data of how it's occurring in our community, let's think about what alcohol is, what it's like, how it's woven into the fabric of our communities, right? So as you're going through this, throw me some comments out, tell me what you've seen. Tell me, some of the memories that you have, or how this has affected you, what it looks like in your community, because there's likely people here from all over Doña Ana County, maybe even farther. So I like to start with this Wheaties marketing, because we all know that Wheaties is a simple cereal, right? It's not exactly drizzled in sugar and marshmallows like kids love, right? But you slap Michael Jordan and Muhammad Ali on that, and it's gold. It is it's wheat gold, right? Everyone wants it. It's a marketing technique, which everyone knows works very well, right? And then this is kind of the way that at least my generation, and again, I told you all I'm 31, and this was definitely a thing growing up. You heard musicians put it in their music that they were drinking Hennessy or something like that, and it definitely does change your mind, the way that you think around alcohol. It kind of takes it outside of that. It's a drug thing and puts it into this other place, which maybe at some point I'll get better at describing that. Maybe you guys can help me with it, but it definitely almost elevates it in a social context. So obviously this is Ryan Reynolds. This is his personal spirits that he sells. And then Mila Kunis is a brand ambassador for Jim Beam. I love Mila Kunis, right? Sure, I'll take a Coke and whiskey, that kind of thing. It's still happening. I don't know if all of you know who this terrifying looking man is. I think he's super nice though, actually. Anyway, his name is Post Malone. I actually am a bit obsessed with his music right now. He's a brand ambassador for Bud Light, and it's in his music videos. This was a Super Bowl commercial. He's just huge with them right now. And so our kids are definitely seeing that, right? Their favorite artist with a Bud Light. It's, like I said, not trying to bash anything here. It's just simply setting up what the culture actually looks like. This was not a thing when I was younger. Look at all these beautiful colors. Look at how vibrant and all of the different flavors that are going on here, right? There's also, to some of these seltzers, there's the thought behind it that it's low carb, or, it's healthier for you, this and that. These, look at the packaging on this. The packaging in itself is intriguing. They're bright, they're round. Why are they round, right? They look crazy. Terrifying looking man. Yes, Nancy. He's a trip. So the story behind these BuzzBalls mixed cocktails, you can find them here in Doña Ana County. They're growing all over the nation. It's kind of something that you'll see in some areas, sitting next to the counter at the gas station. Just grab a couple and throw them in, right? Let's go have fun. This was actually, the concept was created by a teacher. She was grading papers in the pool or something. I don't know. That's probably a lie. Sorry, my brain does weird things trying to remember things. She was in the pool and she had a cocktail with her, and was worried about spilling it constantly. She was worried about breaking her glass constantly, and it kind of just, it bred this thought in her head of, hey, I'm going to make these plastic ball, pre-mixed cocktails that are not that hard to keep with you in the pool. So these the whole brand, it was, it was constructed by, this woman. She had the idea of it, but she actually, admittedly, she paid her sons, although over 21 at the time, she paid them in alcohol to help her with the company, which is quite quite a thing. When you're reading it, you're like, wow, that's wild. So that's definitely a culture around it. Hey, I'm gonna make these, easier alcoholic beverages, and hey, sons, come help me do that. So we're going to get into social media right now. I'd be very remiss if I didn't mention this, because social media is everywhere. It's everywhere for everyone. It's definitely an oddity if you happen to come across someone and ask them, can I get your Snapchat? Follow me on Instagram. Do you have a Facebook? What about a TikTok? And they're like, nope, sure don't. Um, People have something. Mostly people have something, right? YouTube is huge. TikTok is really, really big. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Did I already say TikTok? Sorry. Um, Among our youth, they're using these things too. And this all looks pretty inconspicuous, right? This is actually a local promoter in El Paso. So, our neighbors. And these are all posts on their Instagram page, which it's pretty inconspicuous, right? Game of Thrones versus Marvel. Funny memes making fun of Kanye. This is, they do a lot of El Paso Strong stuff. And then just some of their local events, no big deal. So if you were seeing these things as your kids, you look over their shoulder and they're scrolling through Instagram, not a big deal. These are also mixed in with that same promoter. Here's our man again, this gentleman, Post Malone, in that Bud Light. Who knows how many, I would love to know how many servings of alcohol that is. I bet it's shocking. And then these are White Claws, right? This is one of the big new things on the market, and that's actually kind of where those other seltzers were born out of, right? So these are, pre-mixed cocktails and ish. That's kind of what they're like. So anyway, this kind of stuff is seeped into the culture of what that social media follower is there for, right? They're there for the memes, they're there for the local content, and then they're seeing all of this too. So it's all alcohol marketing. And I actually, full disclosure, my sister is the one who showed me this, because she's actually an alcohol distributor. And we talked about the culture of alcohol in El Paso. And she said that it's very targeted, the way that they do this alcohol. They try to make these things look like, if you're not drinking at, XYZ bar, you're not in the cool crowd. If you don't have a White Claw at this Mardi Gras thing, then, you're not in the cool crowd. That's how it's set up. It's made to be that way. You don't want to drink these because they're delicious. You want to drink them because they're the it drink. Now this one is TikTok, and I wanted to go a different way with this one. I did see some actual underage children on this this hashtag feed. So for those of you who don't know, I learned this not too long ago, unfortunately. If you these hashtags are essentially a topic, right? So you search the hashtag and it'll pull up any video that the creator has put this hashtag in the description of, as a way to help you find content that's related to your hashtag. So when I pulled this up, I did see several underage drinkers doing things that are not appropriate, and definitely did not want to put it out any further into the world than it already was, I'm sure. But just this little clip, me ordering a drink with a fake ID, things we've all done underage drinking, getting a glass of Prosecco at Christmas at 13. What if your kid actually hadn't thought about this before, and it was TikTok who was like, hey, mom and dad's vodka, I could totally start sipping on that and replacing it with water. This type of stuff is at your kids' fingertips. So definitely think of that when they are online. I'm not saying don't let them be on social media, but just, I think it helps for us to know what they're possibly seeing, so that we can kind of meet them halfway and have those conversations, which we'll talk about here in a few. And just also know that social media has a direct association with underage drinking because of the positive vibes that they spin with the alcohol, right? Gonna just thumb through these real quick. This is kind of about the culture of when we're drinking, which in short is all the time, right? Anything, at least from from my experience in New Mexico, anything is a picnic. Sure, why not teach the kid how to open that bottle of wine so we can still keep breaking out the picnic gear and get our drink on sooner. It's also a known fact that it's not uncommon within our culture here to, hey kiddo, go grab me another beer, right? Mix in the Coronas in the ice chest with our little juice jugs and whatnot. So we don't exactly keep it away from kids like we would other substances if we were to have them. Anyway, yep, these are like the summer. These are our winter gatherings. So basically every time that we gather to celebrate anything at all, alcohol. This is the culture. This is that one I was telling you about. This is a local bar. You really should be drinking right now, which I get what they're trying to say. I definitely do get it. But coming from the lens that I come from, I'm like, if anything, you should really think about how much you're drinking right now, right? Yeah, you really should be drinking, and you really should come in and get these happy hour specials. That's definitely part of our culture too. Let's get to the bar before happy hour closes, and then, well, I guess after happy hour, we'll just sit around and drink some more and wait for the next happy hour to start. I used to work at a restaurant, I can say that. It's for sure a thing. All right, so I'm going to try to speed up a little bit. If you all have questions, throw them in the chat. I'll answer them, but I don't want to keep you too long. I know that the health stuff kind of takes up a lot of time. So when we're thinking alcohol laws, it applies to everyone and anyone in New Mexico, regardless of if you're a resident or a visitor. It is illegal for anyone under the age of 21 to buy or attempt to buy an alcoholic beverage. It's also illegal for someone over the age of 21 to purchase that and give it to someone under the age of 21. Using a fake ID or lending a fake ID, these are huge crimes. Do not do it. Don't do that at all. It seems very like it's not a big deal, right? You can get in a lot of trouble for this, so don't do it. Okay, DWIs. If you ever had a question about why you should not drink and drive, and I'm talking have one drink and drive, we kind of shy away from telling people, here's this chart, Google the chart, and you can figure out based on your age, your weight, if you're a male or female, and how much you had, you'll be at this kind of blood alcohol concentration level, so you're safe to drive. We shy away from that because if you're at the bar, what if your server wasn't measuring the drink and she didn't actually provide you with just one serving of alcohol? It was more of a double, right? You don't know these kinds of things, and it's best to just err on the side of caution and get a designated driver. So the legal limit in New Mexico is 0.08. If you're under 21, it's 0.02. And this, we were curious about why it's not just 0.00. This is actually just kind of for any kind of error, or maybe, the kid took some Benadryl or NyQuil or Benadryl. I don't even think that's a thing. Sorry. If they took the NyQuil or something like that, or, took it last night, maybe there's still a little bit in there. It's kind of there for a legality kind of thing. And then the commercial drivers, it's a 0.04. So those are the levels. And now if you do breathe or your blood tests come back that it's over or at that amount, then you will lose your license in most cases for a year. And also you'll get some hefty fines. So driver's license suspension and fines, it starts right out at that. And then it gets up to where you're going to get the license suspended. You'll get the fines. You'll also get imprisonment, right? And it can get pretty crazy. You can lose your driver's license rather for a lifetime. And alcohol is involved in about 40% of traffic crashes in which someone is killed, which is a very high amount considering that it's absolutely illegal to drink and drive, and there's billboards everywhere, and we would think by this point everyone would know, get an Uber, get a designated driver, walk home. Please don't drink and drive. Please, please, please. Even if you think you're okay, just don't do it. This is actually a local crash. This is about a quarter mile from my house. This is on a walking path I use very frequently. This is the hotel over off of Don Roser. This is off of Trevice right here. There was a 19-year-old woman driving. She had two other minors in her car. I believe they were under the age of 18. And they were all drinking, and this was what it looked like after they lost control of the vehicle. Luckily, everyone survived, but what a terrifying scene, right? Minor in possession, first, second, and third offenses across the board here. They can get some pretty hefty fines. I don't know about you parents, but I don't have $1,000 to spare, and I'm not trying to coordinate community service hours for them either. Big deals here, right? Second offense, you can still get that fine. Your community service goes up, and your driver's license gets suspended if you have one. And then it just gets worse from there, right? More community service and license suspended for a longer period of time. Now, this is where I really like to make a big to-do about this fourth-degree felony. A lot of our community members don't realize that it is a felony to provide minors with alcohol. It doesn't matter what your excuse is, your reasoning behind it. We know that parents they don't do it out of malice when they say, I'm just going to let my kids drink here, or my kids and their friends drink here because I can keep them safe here. I do understand the sentiment. I do. I feel like a lot of parents feel like the culture around alcohol has beat them before they've even tried to keep their kiddos away from it. I feel like they think it's a given. You know, they did it when they were young, and so their kids are probably going to do it. And there's nothing they can do to stop them. So maybe I can keep them safe if they're here. But what I always like to say is you can't keep them safe inside of their body. Maybe they won't go drink and drive, or God forbid, get sexually assaulted or something like that. Mind you, alcohol creates volatile situations, so I'm not even sure if you could control it when it's in your house. But either way, the damage that it does to their brains, their livers, their hearts, their emotional stability, they can't protect them from that, right? So if you've already read through this, which rights are you losing with a felony? Outside of thinking about your kids' well-being, think about this. Did you vote during the election? Did you like it? Not did you like the outcome, but did you like the fact that you could go and vote? Do you bear arms? Do you possess weapons? If you're a truck driver, maybe, or an aspiring lawyer, something that it can affect your job and your right to be on a jury, which I know makes people sad. That was a joke. Anyway, this is a little bit more data on why we really focus on family members, guardians, when we're talking about how alcohol gets in the hand of minors. Adult family members are the most frequent source of alcohol for those 18 to 20 years old. And the data that talks to the younger group of kids, it's the same thing. That's where they're getting it. It's from their family or someone unrelated to them that's 21 or older. So that's why we're targeting that group as far as the environment that our kiddos are in, right? Really need to teach parents more about alcohol so that they can make better choices for their kiddos. And then when we're asking parents, when is it okay to provide alcohol to a minor? This is actually community members, period. We're asking community members, when is that okay? Less than half are saying never, which is super upsetting. And then there's all of these different reasons why it's okay. Their parents gave them permission. It's a celebration, right? This is the quinceañeras. As long as they're safe, these types of things are not out of malice. There's nobody that answered any of this wants anything bad for these kids. This is just, you don't know what you don't know, right? So that's why we're out here teaching people. Now, this is something that we've put into action in Doñana County to really get at the heart of the youth having parties at home and getting the alcohol from their family members. A social host ordinance is another citation that you can receive if you live in Hatch, Messia, Anthony, or Sunland Park, where if their law enforcement become aware of underage drinking, they can hold the property owner accountable for allowing the underage drinking to occur. Let's say they can't prove that you supplied them with the alcohol, so they can't give you that felony. They can still slap a citation on you and possible jail time for allowing it to occur in your homes. And yes, it can happen even if you don't know about it. Lock up your alcohol. Keep them safe, right? Keep them safe from themselves and their limbic system, because they just can't think critically for themselves. That's what we're here for. So this is hopefully in the future it'll be something that's enacted in Las Cruces and in the outskirts of the county where there's, you know, not a municipality like there is in those 4 other areas. But this is aimed towards, one, stopping the parties and the providing of alcohol, but also a 4th degree felony ruins lives. It affects your housing. It can affect your benefits as far as food stamps or Medicaid or anything like that. We would rather that one-time kind of hit to the pocketbook than ruin parents' lives when it's obviously intrinsic to our culture. Alcohol's everywhere. No one's trying to hurt their kids. Let's use this as a form of, hey, it's not safe. It's not okay. I'll tell you why. Don't do it again. You're going to have to pay this fine. Don't do it again. And the research shows that 8 out of 10 times the parents that or hosts that get this citation don't do it again. So it's really a deterrent, which is awesome. It's exactly what we want. Now, we're going to go into more along now what can you do? You know all of this stuff, you know what it does to you, what it is, how it affects you. You know what it looks like in the culture, and you've thought about that maybe around your own lives and the way that your lives are set up. You know all of the legalities behind it. Now, what do you even do, right? So I'm going to encourage you all, because I'm not going to talk about it for very long. I don't want to keep you all from dinner. But please go to this website, samhsa.gov/underage drinking. Also, you can just throw in the Google machine, Talk They Hear You. And this is a new campaign that we're going to be launching in January, and it really gets in depth on how to talk to your kids about substances. We should be talking to them as early as 9 years old. Now, obviously, that conversation looks different at 9 versus 12 versus 16 versus 18, right? It all looks different, but the conversation needs to be happening, because if we don't do it, what are they going to learn, and from who? Also, research shows that you guys have the power, man. They're listening to you. Parents are the number 1 reason why young people decide not to drink, which is exciting, because so many parents feel that they've lost the grip on that. There's nothing that they can do. Well, there is. You are it. You can do it just by talking with them. So kind of do some of these. These are the simple things, right? Show your kids that you disapprove of it. Don't kind of condone that type of stuff. And you'll figure out your own ways to do it as you look through the website, I'm sure. And if you follow the coalition, we'll be helping out more along the way when we get this campaign up and running. Also, show that you know what you're talking about. Go tell your kids tonight, hey, did you know that alcohol affects your pancreas? Neither did I. I kind of forgot I had a pancreas, right? Just kidding. Anyway, show that you're paying attention, and that you'll notice things, right? These are just little things we can do. And then be aware of factors that may increase the risk of a child using alcohol. COVID-19 and this new world is a risk. Drinking is going up. We already talked about that. There are definitely some other warning signs. So think about that. Be a positive adult role model. If you are at a place, I don't even know what to say now, we're not going anywhere, but when things open back up, let's say you do go to a restaurant and you have an alcoholic beverage, slide those keys over to your significant other, or maybe to your oldest kid that can drive, and tell them, I had a drink, can't drive. Definitely model those behaviors. Maybe even if you're having a drink at home, model to them, what one serving of a drink looks like. Don't let them catch you inebriated, those kinds of things, right? It's actually important what we show them. Support your children and give them space to grow, know where they're at, what they're doing, make an effort to get to know them and those around them. Lots to think about here as well. And I know I'm kind of rushing through this, everyone. I promise we'll get you out some more information. Then you're going to set clear rules. Don't let your kids attend parties where alcohol is served. This getting professional help, this is a big deal. A lot of us, we know small amounts of things, but I remember being in a library at a public meeting in Santa Teresa, and a parent told me that she was like, you all keep, you come in and you tell us that vaping is dangerous, and I catch my kid doing it and I take it, and the next day she's got another one, and I keep finding all of these juices and I'm trying my hardest. I want to help her. But when I ask her why she doesn't, she tells me, Mom, I'm addicted. And she says, and now what do I do? And I'm not going to lie to you, at that point in my career, I was not prepared to answer her question. And now I am. If someone were to say that to me now, I know exactly where to send them. We have the partners in the community. We know what the structure is. Getting professional help is an absolute must, because that addiction in your brain, that's no small thing. Just grounding them is not going to help. They need help, actual help, professional help, right? So thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited that you all hung out for that a little over an hour and let me chat with you. So we're going to post, Michelle, I don't know if you have it ready, or you can post it in the chat right now so everyone can go to that, but excuse me. If you all were paying attention to the chat earlier, Nancy Molina, who was commenting, she's a very integral part in getting this presentation to you all. And she's an intern of ours. We actually have 4 interns this semester, and Nancy's one of them. They set up this entire thing and really pushed us to do our first Facebook Live because I was so nervous. I spend hours a day on Zoom, but I definitely don't sit here and just talk to myself for an hour. So thank you guys so much. You wonderful interns. You guys are going to do amazing things. Thank you for pushing us outside of our comfort zone. I really hope that for you all that are listening to this and will listen later, that you learn something, and that and let us know if you liked it. Michelle's going to go ahead and post that link for you all here, or it's already posted on the page, on our Facebook page. So please go answer that survey. Go click on that link and answer the survey. Tell us how we did. We'll keep doing these. We'll bring to you. Oh, there it is. There's that survey. Please go answer it. We couldn't stress the importance of that enough. This is our first time doing it. We really need to know what the pros and cons were for you all, so we can make things better in the future, or keep doing the things that are working out. And yeah, again, just thank you guys so much for being here. And I hope that you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving week. Stay safe, protect yourselves and your family. And take care, everyone. Thank you.